my recovery is up to me. My mental health is up to me. My physical health is up to me. That's when I was like, okay, so yeah, that's radical ownership, taking your life into your own hands and realizing that your actions or inactions are your fault. Where you are in your life today is your fault.
All right, Sober Stories. I am so excited to welcome Bean Gill to the podcast. Welcome, Bean.
Hi, Beth. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here too.
Yeah. How's your day been going today?
It's been a little bit stressful, but that's the same as every other day. So it's been good.
Yeah. Good. Well, I am really excited to talk about your story in general. I think you have a really compelling story, and the way you speak is really compelling. And I know that alcohol is a part of that in some way. So I would love to just start with the high notes. For the people, we've given them a bio, we've given them kind of, your credentials, but for those who are new to you, new to your story, give us the high notes of who you are, where you are, what you do, who you do life with, and then we'll dig into the story in a minute.
Sure. So my name is Bean Gill. I am from Edmonton, Alberta, born and raised here, and I'm 40 years old. I am paralyzed, and I run a business called ReYu Paralysis Recovery Centre with my business partner, Nancy. I have an amazing family. I have 3 siblings, 3 nephews, 1 niece. I live with my mom and my brother and his family, and we have a little puppy named Archie. And so far, life has been very interesting, as you'll see. But yeah, it's been quite the whirlwind living my life.
Well, let's dive in. Give us your story, because I know you kind of have 2 stories that are relevant here. You have the story of how you became paralyzed, and then also alcohol, and whether or not those intermix or not, we'll find out. But give us the rundown of your story.
Sure. So yeah, alcohol definitely played a part in me getting paralyzed. So I guess I'll give you a brief Cliff's Notes of my life. Like I said, I was born and raised here. I became an X-ray tech after going to NAIT, and, I was working a full-time job, and then I got a position in the cardiac cath lab. And that's where people go once you have a heart attack. You go there, and underneath X-rays, they go in and open up your arteries that feed your heart muscle. It's a very stressful job. I've seen a lot of people pass away right in front of me. I've done CPR on many, many people. It was very stressful. And that is where my drinking started. Actually, that's not where it started. That's where it expedited. I got married when I was 25 while I was working in the cath lab. And because I didn't know how to communicate my feelings, I didn't know how to feel my emotions, I didn't know that it was okay to even feel emotions, let alone label them and work through them. I just didn't know. I was always the type of kid that would sweep everything under the rug. I would bottle everything up and then explode. Like I said, I didn't have healthy ways of communication. That wasn't modeled in my house with my parents. I just didn't see any of that, so I didn't know how to do it. And I was always also a very secretive kid. I didn't tell anybody a lot of things I was doing. Which also played a part in me getting paralyzed.
The presenting partner of Sober Stories is Lyre's non-alcoholic spirits. That's Lyre's as in Lyre, like the Australian lyrebird, which can mimic just about any sound. Like that fancy Aussie bird, Lyre's was created to replicate well as many different alcoholic spirits as possible, allowing us to drink our way. Now that the sun is shining and the birds are chirping, plan ahead for your next spring barbecue by packing a cooler of spectacularly crafted non-alcoholic cocktails to have in hand when they ask you what you'd like to drink. Lyre's has your sunshine days covered with their pre-mixed beverage line. They're easy, festive, and made for this season. With 5 different opportunities for celebration, the Classico's our favorite, Lyre's canned selections are the Sober Stories team's go-to for fresh alcoholic-free sips. Head over to lyres.com and use code SOBERSTORIES1010, that's the number 10, the word 10, for 10% off your purchase. Liars gives you the freedom to drink your way, to not just provide an alternative to those who don't wish to imbibe alcohol, but to ensure that everyone can enjoy the mirth and the merriment of a soiree or shindig.
Working in the cath lab, everybody there drinks a lot, and it's celebrated and it's normalized, and it's okay to, drink a few bottles, and we would laugh about it, and we would, like I said, celebrate it. That, oh, how many bottles did you drink? Well, this is how many I drank. And, we would drink together, and it was a great way to cope with the stress and stuff of the job and then life on top of that. I was married, and my marriage was really unhappy. For the first year was fine. And then after that, it kind of all went to hell. And because I didn't know how to communicate my feelings, I wasn't able to speak my truth. I numbed myself, and I would drink. And then when I was drunk, my truth would come out, but I wouldn't remember it. And then the next day when my ex would tell me what I said, I was like, no, like, that's not how I feel. I'm totally happy. I'm totally good. Right. Because I didn't know. I didn't have the courage or bravery to speak my truth. And when I did speak my truth, I denied it because I didn't want to really even be in that reality. And because it's hard, right? It's hard to speak your truth. It's hard to end a relationship. It's hard to do all these things. Whereas pouring a glass of wine was the easy out, right? Being that fun loving, outgoing person after having a few drinks was always the easy out. And so that's what I did because that's all I knew. And, it was in 2011 is when I quit my job in the cath lab. And I ended up getting a position in a clinic and, becoming the supervisor of the X-ray clinic. And that's kind of when things really started to peak at my, with the drama, I guess, in my life. So when I quit there, a little bit of my stress went down, but also a lot of my stress went up because I was still married, very unhappy, not sure how to express that. And so 2012 was, and I hope remains, the worst year of my life. That's when things really hit the fan and put me on the path that I'm on now. So in January of 2012, that's when I turned 30 and, had a great party. It was really fun and stuff. But I remember telling my friend a few days after that, like, I'm going to leave him. I don't know how much longer they expect me to put up with his shit. And they being his family, right? And I didn't know how I was going to leave. I didn't know that, but I knew I was going to that year. And so fast forward a couple of months to April, it was Easter long weekend, and we had gone out, and all of my friends and my cousins were there and his cousins were there. And, we're all drinking and having a good time. And the restaurant actually cut us off because we had so much alcohol. So we went to another bar, right?
As one does.
Like, right? Can't get in here. Let me go somewhere else. So we went somewhere else, had more drinks and stuff there. And I guess, my ex got jealous of one of my friends. We were dancing, but it was very platonic. We were dancing in a group of people, and you know what I mean? And so when we got back to the car, we got into a big fight, and he ended up backhanding me and hit me. And I have a zero tolerance policy for especially physical abuse. And now it's all type of abuse. I have a zero tolerance policy for, but back then it was just physical. And I mean, I was drunk. He was drunk. He was driving our expensive car, and he was threatening to kill me. He was threatening to kill both of us. He was threatening to crash the car and kill us both. We fought all the way home. And I mean, he should not have been driving, but he was. And when we got home, that fight continued. It got a lot more violent. And I ended up with 2 black eyes, a red eyeball, cut my eyebrow open, had bruises all over my arms and the sides of my body. And like, it was bad. It could have been a lot worse, but it was bad. And So I called my sister, who then woke up my dad and my brother, and they called the police as they were on their way to come pick me up. So the police has a zero tolerance policy. Right. So they pressed charges for assault and asked me if I wanted to press additional charges. I said no, because I knew he would just ruin his life on his own, and I didn't want any part of that. And so, that happened in April. Like I said, I didn't know how to process any feelings or emotions. I numbed myself. All of my friends said I need to go see a therapist and go talk to somebody, tell somebody what's happening. And my justification was, I can't afford it. I can't afford $140 an hour. But hey, I can spend $300 on 4 or 5 bottles, no problem, right? It's priorities, and obviously hindsight is 2020, and so I can see the mistakes that I made and the choices that I made that led me to the path that I'm on. So from April to June, I partied hard. I numbed myself very well with anything that I could find: shopping, drinking, anything. And at the end of June of 2012, that's when my dad left our family. And I mean, that was decades in the making, but when it actually happened, it's still really hard to digest and process. And I was quite close with my dad, so that made it hard. And then 2 weeks later, I was in Vegas for my friend's stagette. And so I was really excited to be in Vegas, newly single, but I really didn't want to be a part of this wedding. I didn't want to go to the wedding. And that's because I was a bridesmaid and my ex was a groomsman in this wedding. So I didn't want to go to the wedding. I didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't want to go there just because I knew he would make a scene. And I hadn't seen him since the day I left. And so while I was in Vegas, it was Friday the 13th, and can't make that up. I woke up and we were going to go to the pool that day. So I woke up, went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth, washed my face, walked over to the window in the hotel room, opened the curtains, and saw that it was raining outside. And then I remember thinking, like, that's weird. When does it rain in Vegas in July? Like, it was plus 44 the day before. And so, whatever, I walked back to the bed, and those 4 steps I took were the last 4 steps I took on my own. And I can still feel the carpet on the bottom of my feet. I remember getting into the bed with my right leg first. And as I started to lay down, I experienced the most excruciating pain I've ever felt in my low back. I have a very high pain tolerance, but this was really, really bad pain. Pain only lasted maybe a minute or two, and then I wasn't able to move my right leg. So as I lay there trying to move both of my legs, only my left leg is moving. I'm wiggling my toes, flexing my ankle, bending my knees, flexing my hip, whatever I could do. I'm trying to move both, but only the left leg was moving. And then my leg went prickly from my hip to my toes, kind of like a kind of motion. And I was left paralyzed from the waist down within 10 minutes. So as I lay there, unable to move anything, I could feel everything, couldn't move anything. My critical thinking skills jump into play. I took my pulse. I started looking at my vitals. As an X-ray tech,
yeah,
right?
Your brain healthcare.
Right? You go straight to trauma mode, and I'm thinking about my spinal cord and where my pain was, and nothing made sense. I didn't fall. I didn't do any drugs. It was 10:30 in the morning. Like, yes, I had been drinking the night before, but I even didn't get like super wasted the night before. So things just didn't make sense. I didn't know what was happening. And so I called 911, called my insurance company, went to the hospital, had an MRI right off the bat. That came back clear, as did all of my tests. Every single test that I had in Vegas, I was in the hospital there for 12 days.
Oh my God.
Came back clear or normal. And I actually got misdiagnosed in Vegas with conversion disorder. And that is where you're so stressed out that your brain tells your body to shut down. Given my year and the 30 before that, where I was unable to express my emotions and feelings and deal with my trauma, where I bottled all of it in, this is how it came out. And when people say stress will kill you, this is the stress that will kill you. For real, stress played a big part in the way I was paralyzed, because now I got my official diagnosis 3 months later, which was transverse myelitis. And I actually do have a lesion in my spinal cord at T10, T11. Which basically means inflammation of the spinal cord. And the reason it didn't show up on any of my other MRIs is because it's kind of like a scar where it takes time for it to develop. The disease process happened on July 13th, but it took a few months for that scar to develop in my spinal cord. So that's why it wasn't just shown on any of the other MRIs until 3 months later when I had another one. And so, you know, TM, they say, is autoimmune, which is just a giant cop-out for the medical system to say we don't know. There is no way that your immune system ever will start attacking your body on its own. There's no way. The human body is far too smart for that. If that was the case, humans wouldn't be around for this long. What did happen is the Epstein-Barr virus, EBV. Lots of people have it. It's very, very common. Majority of people, though, it stays dormant in your organs and just feeds off heavy metals and excess hormones in your body. Those of us who are the lucky ones to get to stage 4, like myself, it waits until your cortisol spikes. Cortisol is your stress hormone. And when your cortisol spikes, that's when it says, okay, now is my chance to attack the central nervous system. So that's when Epstein-Barr will leave your organs and attack your central nervous system. Central nervous system is your brain and your spinal cord. So I'm very lucky that it didn't attack my brain. Very lucky that it attacked my spinal cord at T10, T11. So my arms and my upper body is still quote unquote normal. I do wish it attacked my fat cells, like something less vital than my spinal cord.
Yeah, right. Can we get choosy here?
Right? Like, yeah, come on. My spinal cord, like something so vital. Come on. But it put me on the path, right? And I remember my best friend, she's a life coach, and she said to me while I was in the hospital in Vegas lying there, she said, Bean, this is God literally stopping you in your tracks and making you deal with your shit. And I said, yes, you are correct. This is it, right? And I mean, the most beautiful silver lining out of all of this is that it forced me to get a psychologist. When I came back to Edmonton, because of that misdiagnosis, they told me I need a psychologist or a psychiatrist to find that mental block that I have in my head, unlock it, and you'll get your mobility back. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll do whatever it takes. So when I came back to Canada, I went the free route, first of all, right? Because we're like, oh, Canada, we have free healthcare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I'm in the States.
This is when we find out the truth. Yeah, this is the truth about free healthcare. It is not free. You get what you pay for, which is absolutely diddly squat, right? So I made an appointment with the free psychologist, but I didn't get that appointment for 6 weeks. And I'm like, I can't wait 6 weeks. So I kept that appointment, but I also searched up for, you know, a psychologist in Edmonton, and I found one. Her and I clicked very well. And it turns out she's actually one of the top psychologists in Edmonton. I just didn't know at the time, which was awesome. So her and I started seeing her about twice a week to start. And then it went to once a week. Then it went to once every 2 weeks, and now it's kind of as needed, which is about 2 times a year. But definitely that was the biggest blessing out of all of this, because she helped me deal with all of my trauma that I bottled up. She helped me deal with my paralysis. She showed me how I can love myself being paralyzed, being a wheelchair user. One of my first thoughts after being paralyzed was, who the hell is going to date the girl in a wheelchair? Right? And I had that thought because I had the stigma towards people with disabilities.
Right.
I thought that people with disabilities don't date. They don't deserve intimacy. They don't need pleasure. They don't need any of that. And that's society's programming in me, right? I've always been a very empathetic person, and being an x-ray tech, like I've helped so many people, and I was a healthcare aide before that. So I've worked with so many people with disabilities, and it's not that I judged them or anything, but it's the subconscious bias that we have. And I had that stigma towards people with disabilities. And then I became the person with the disability, and I had to unlearn all of that, right? And really realize that I am worthy of love. I am worthy of intimacy and pleasure and all of the things that neurotypical able-bodied people are also worthy of. I am too. But it took me a year and a half to figure that out. Okay. It wasn't an easy switch, right? Like I had to.
Rarely is, right?
Yeah, very rarely. And like, you know, your whole life gets flipped upside down. My whole identity got shifted. I'm no longer independent. I'm no longer an x-ray tech, right? I'm no longer a makeup artist. I was a makeup artist as well. I'm no longer that. Like, what am I now? I'm the girl in a wheelchair. And that was a difficult identity for me to adopt. And I still really haven't fully adopted it. And I don't think I ever will. But what happened is when I was paralyzed, it also sobered me up because it scared the shit out of me. How did this happen? Right? Why did this happen? That was a huge question that I asked over and over and over again. And toxins is a big reason why these viruses thrive in our bodies, and alcohol is a huge toxin. So I stopped alcohol, I stopped meat, I stopped really anything that I could that I knew was going to do damage to my body. That didn't last very long though. It lasted maybe about 7 months. And then I was like, well, maybe I can have a couple of glasses of wine, right? I think it should be okay. And I mean, that's how it always starts, right? And I'm the type of person that go big or go home. Why have a glass? Have a bottle. Yep. Right? What's the point of having one drink when I could be buzzed or tipsy or drunk?
Yeah, child's play.
That was my mentality. And I didn't know that that's the mentality of alcoholics. And, you know, that label too is also really hard to adopt and to admit. And so I didn't admit it for a long, long time. And so when I was, you know, when I started drinking, I mean, you know, when you're in a wheelchair, a lot of my friends treated me like normal. So we still went to restaurants, still went to bars and stuff. And when you're the only person in a wheelchair in a bar, you get lots of free drinks, like lots of free drinks. Right. And so, I mean, that's a perk, and I would always take advantage of it. And so I was throwing back shots, no problem. I was, you know, slamming those drinks, dancing, and like doing whatever I wanted to do because that was my life. And I knew when my sister was there or my friends were there, someone was always there to take care of me. So I didn't have to take care of myself, which allowed me to just drink uncontrollably. And one thing that a lot of people don't know about people with spinal cord injuries is that your spinal cord actually controls your bowel and your bladder. So when you have a spinal cord injury, you often will lose your bowel and bladder functions. And that's how that happened to me. It happens to many, many people. And when you're drinking alcohol, which is a huge bladder irritant, guess what happens?
Yeah.
You pee your pants.
Right.
A lot. Right? So alcohol is an irritant. Anything carbonated is an irritant. And champagne was my favorite.
So you can double whammy.
Yeah. So no more champagne, no more beer. So I kind of switched just to wine and vodka was my kind of go-to, or rum. So I was drinking a lot, right? And trying to live with this life and, you know, go on that journey, and also then my recovery. So I was still doing a lot of physio. And in 2013 is when I was introduced to activity-based training. And I ended up traveling to a few different centers to find activity-based training. And when I ended up in California, the program was amazing. I just loved it so much. My recovery started skyrocketing. It was incredible. And so when I was down there, I Googled the U of A because I needed to find a kinesiology student to help me with my home program. And I found some guy's email address, emailed him. I was like, I don't know if you're the person who can help me, but this is who I am. I need a kinesiology student. What do I do? So he kind of asked me some more questions and then fanned it out to the whole faculty as a job posting. And I got about 12 responses. And one of those responses was Nancy, who is now my business partner. And this is something she's always wanted to do. She just didn't know she could do it in Canada. So when she saw the opportunity, she was like, oh, like this is something I really want to do. And so her and I started working together, and we are completely opposite people, completely opposite. Black and white, yin yang, like day and night, 180 degrees from each other, completely opposite. But I think that's why we work so well together. So we worked together as like trainer and client for a long time. And one of the things like I noticed in California is that there was people in wheelchairs all over the place, everywhere. And I never saw anybody here in Edmonton. No one. You know, the occasional senior citizen or the homeless person here or there. That was it. I didn't see anybody who looked like me, anybody, you know, there's a custom wheelchair, never. And so, but in California, they were all over the place. So I was kind of like, what kind of bizarro land am I in? Where are these people? Right? And so I'm like, okay, well, statistically, if there's able-bodied people, there are people with disabilities all over our planet, right? So I made it my mission when I came back to Edmonton to find these people. Because I'm like, I want friends. I had my friends, I had my family, but nobody understands. And they won't understand because they're not in your position. They for sure tried their best to support me. They did everything that they possibly could, but no one understands until somebody's in that position, right? So when I came back, that was my mission. I started going to all these places to find people with disabilities. And as I did, I just kind of like forced my friendship on everybody.
Hi, I'm Bean.
Yeah. I'm a bit of an extrovert. I don't know if you can tell. So then also what ended up happening is Nancy was going around to people's houses to train them as well. And so that's when we really started to see the need for a center here in Edmonton. I just wasn't in the right headspace, and she was still in school. So it didn't happen for a few years. But through those few years, I was still drinking. And in 2015, we had 10 weddings that year. It was the year of weddings. And Indian weddings are week-long affairs, all open bar, right? And very, very heavy food. And so that, I also had 2 white weddings, but those 2 weddings were in Mexico at all-inclusive resorts. So also 7 days long, heavy drinking, lots of terrible food. And so by September of that year, I was like, okay, I got to take a break from drinking and eating this shitty food, right? So I volitionally took a break from drinking and stuff for a few months. And then in 2016, I was like, okay, like I want to see how lean I can get, right? And like, I've always been working out. I've worked out since I was 12 years old. And now I'm like, let me play around with my food. I want to see how lean I can get. So I started tracking, and I was very, very diligent, very consistent. And, I lost almost 40 pounds and have kept it off since then. Right. And, it's mainly diet. Like 80% of your weight loss is the food you're shoveling into your mouth. Right. And so when you really start tracking all the food and the fat and the carbs, you really start to realize like, oh my God, do I need this donut? Do I need this chocolate bar? Do I need this can of Coke? Right. And I was very competitive with myself. So I stopped all of that stuff. So I did lose a lot of the body fat that was on me, but I kept drinking as if I was still carrying those 40 pounds. And that was really bad for my organs. And I was also in denial about being an alcoholic. In 2015, when I said we had all those weddings, at almost every single wedding reception, I would fall out of my chair because I was so drunk. And, you know, it's embarrassing and whatever, but I didn't care because I was drunk. Right. And the next day after the receptions, I would get a talking to from my family, and they say like, what are you doing? Like, why are you behaving like this? Look how old you are. Why do we have to babysit you? Why can't you just get a hold of your life? Why do you have to be like this? And I would just kind of like brush it off and be like, I'm paralyzed. Like this happened to me. My life is really hard. Victim mentality, right? And because I needed something to justify my behavior rather than taking radical ownership of my life, which I have now done, right? Which is why I speak about this.
Yeah, I totally want to ask you about that.
Learn from them, right? Yeah, I want people to learn from my mistakes and like take ownership of your life. So then in 2016, later on, I started drinking again because I was like, oh, like, yeah, I can have a sip here and there and I can have a glass here and there. And then we all know what that turns into, right? So what ended up happening is it was Christmas time. It was December 3rd. I went to a Christmas party. Nancy and I both went. And, obviously I was drinking there. Oh, sorry. It was the next day, actually. And I was actually at dinner with my lawyer and his new fiance. The irony of this, okay? I was at dinner and, had a few glasses of wine with dinner, then went to a bar, had a couple of more glasses of wine, went to another bar, had some shots, right? And then I was like, yeah, I'm fine to drive home. I'm totally cool. Don't worry. I got this. I'm going to drive home. So I did. I didn't make it home. I was driving downtown and I don't remember this. I have no recollection of it. The impact of the accident woke me up. So I have a feeling that I fell asleep. But I'm not 100% sure. I don't know what happened. So what did happening is I hit a unoccupied parked car. Thank God. Thank God I didn't hit anybody. I didn't injure anybody other than myself. Because it could have been really, really bad and I could be in jail right now. So what ended up happening is the impact woke me up. And then some guy comes to my car. He's like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, okay, I'm okay. He's like, okay. He's like, ambulance is on its way. So are the cops. And I was like, oh shit, cops. He's like, yeah, I called 911. I was like, oh my God. Right. And I'm a brown girl living in Alberta. Yeah. I've dealt with many, many racist police officers in my lifetime. And I just know I've watched too many episodes of Law and Order. I know, don't ever tell the cops nothing. So I called my lawyer, the friend who I was just with at dinner. I called him and I said, yo, this just happened. What do I do? He gave me the number of a criminal defense lawyer and it was midnight at this time. So he's like, call him till he wakes up. So I kept calling this guy and I said, yo, I got your number from this guy. I just crashed my car. I'm drunk. What do I do? And he said, do not refuse to blow. If anything, do not refuse to blow. Blow into it. We'll fight it later. And don't admit to anything and don't tell the cops anything. So like, sound advice. Okay, cool. And then immediately after that, paramedics came, took me out of my car. And because I'm paralyzed, I couldn't tell if I was injured or not. Right? And so normal protocol is they would do the breathalyzer. I did the breathalyzer. I've never done this before. I didn't know you have to like kind of hum when you're breathing into it. I didn't know. And I'm crying because now the reality of the situation is setting into my brain that, oh my God, I have to tell my family that I just crashed my car and I'm drunk. Right? So the breathalyzer thing's not working. The officer is like, you're doing this on purpose. I'm going to charge you with refusing to blow. And it was just a really high stress situation. So the protocol is they're supposed to take me to the main station to blow into the big machine that never errors out. But because I was paralyzed, they had to take me to the hospital. And so he should have ordered another breathalyzer to come there, but he didn't. And so at the hospital, they ended up drawing my blood and did blood alcohol instead of breath alcohol. My blood alcohol level was almost 3 times the amount that it should be. The doctor yelled at me, gave me a big lecture. He's like, do you know how much you weigh? He's like, do you know that you have more alcohol in your system right now than blood? And it was eye-opening, right? Because I'm like, it was then that I was like, holy fuck, I do have a problem. I really do have a problem. And that was when I first admitted it to myself. And I was texting my siblings and I said, you guys, this just happened. I don't want to tell my mom. I don't want to tell her. And they're like, you have to tell her. And they were so disappointed in me. My whole family was so disappointed in me. They were so mad at me. And that's one of the main reasons why I'll never drink again, is because I don't want to ever bring that kind of disappointment to my family. Especially after all the things that they did for me when I needed them the most. And like, this is how I repay everybody. And this was 3 months before ReYu was to open. Right? And my sister said to me, she's like, this is so much bigger than you. You got to open your eyes and look at your priorities here. This is bigger than you. Are you willing to risk your business for drinking? And like, they really laid it down on me, and it worked because that was the last time I had any alcohol. I went to an AA meeting after that, and that was really hard. First, even to call and be like, can I come? When are your meetings? Just even doing that was a really big, like I kind of a punch to the gut, right? Like, yo, you're an alcoholic. And so when I went to the meeting, I mean, some things I liked, some things I didn't like. One thing I didn't like was the God aspect, right? There was a lot of talk about God and all these things. And I have a very tumultuous relationship with God. And so I didn't like that. I did like the support and stuff that was provided there, but I didn't like having to constantly talk about God. I also didn't like that every time you speak, you have to say, hi, I'm Bean, I'm an alcoholic. And I only went to one meeting, but in that meeting, I said that about 6 times. And I was just like, I don't like that. I don't want the word alcoholic attached to my name. I don't want that to be my identity. I don't want that. And so, you know, I got my token, my chip from them, and I thanked them at the end of the meeting for letting me come. And I got a couple of phone numbers of some women that were in the meeting as well for support. But I never went back to another AA meeting. And it's just not for me, right? It's for other people. It is a great program. Fully support it. It was just not for me. And so I did keep on my sober journey. The first few months were really hard because I wanted to drink. I didn't want to stop. I knew I had to stop, but I didn't want to. So I kind of became a hermit. I didn't go to restaurants. I didn't go to my friend's house if I knew everybody was drinking. I just didn't go because I knew I would want to do it, and I didn't have enough strength and willpower, and I knew I would just start drinking. And then the first like real test was we had a fundraiser for ReYu, and it was a bar night that I had planned. Oh God. Okay. Well, this is my fundraiser, so I have to go. There's no not going, but this was my first test. Can you go to a bar and not drink? And luckily, like Nancy was there, and Nancy doesn't drink or anything. She's the straightest arrow you'll ever meet. And my arrow doesn't even know it's an arrow, just bouncing around all over the place. Right?
It's a boomerang.
Yeah. So she was there. My family was there. A lot of my friends were there. So I knew I had the support. And I made it. I survived that night. I didn't drink. I drank iced tea. I ate and food and stuff like that, but I didn't drink. So I was like, ooh, okay. Step 1, I made it, right? And then it just got a little bit easier of making that choice not to drink. But the fact that everybody was like, oh, do you want to drink? No, that's okay. Well, why? Have one. Why? Are you pregnant? Have one. Have one. That pressure of like, why aren't you drinking? If you're not pregnant, then there's no other reason for you not to be drinking. Right? And this is where society needs to change. So yeah, one of the things I found difficult was just society constantly forcing people to drink. And so I went to one of my friends' houses, and, you know, they were all drinking and stuff. And when I got there, one of their friends was like, oh, hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. I said, hi, I'm Bean. Nice to meet you. And she's like, oh, can I get you a drink? And I was like, no, that's okay. I don't drink. Oh, come on. Let me get you a drink. And I'm like, no, that's okay. Like, I don't drink. It's all good. Right. But like, come on, like you have to have a drink. And she was being like really aggressive kind of with it. And I can tell she's had a few. Right. And so that's when I said, listen, I'm an alcoholic. I'm not drinking. Oh my God, you're an alcoholic? I work with addictions. Oh, really? Yeah. So you didn't take it from the 3 times I told you that I don't drink. You didn't pick up those hints, and this is what you do for a job.
Right.
Cool. Right? And so just like, man, I don't ever want to be one of your clients. And I hope you don't have many clients because you didn't hear what I'm saying to you. So like, that's the pressure. And this is somebody who works with people with addictions. Right? And like, it's so prevalent. I mean, how many, scrolling on Instagram, how many shirts do you say where the wine o'clock?
Oh yeah.
Right? I'm a wino. Like it's celebrated. It's like people are proud to be that. And then let's just replace that word wino with alcoholic.
Yeah.
Then no, that's not me. I'm not an alcoholic. No, I just have a couple of glasses of wine every day. Oh, do you want to look up the definition? Right? I can say that to many of my friends.
Yeah.
Right? When you're binging, you're blacking out. Guess what that is? Right? But so many of us just don't want to adopt that term or that label of alcoholic. And now when I tell people are shocked. You? Yeah. And I say it proudly. Because, I'm Indian first and foremost, which there's so much closet alcoholism in our culture in female and male populations, right? Because in our culture, first of all, it's against our religion to drink, but everybody does it secretly. And then culturally, it's okay for men to drink, but it's not okay for females to drink, right? But we all do is secretly. Now it's more in the open, it's more accepted now, but there's so much of that like, that's why there's so much alcoholism is because it's all done secretly. And there's so much like, male toxicity and patriarchy and misogyny within my culture that creates these very unhealthy coping mechanisms.
We've actually had 2 Southeast Asian women on the podcast already, Jyoti Chand and Payal Desai. And we've talked about a lot of the same threads in the Southeast Asian culture of not talking about mental health and a lot of kind of this more patriarchal society and what that yields. It's been really interesting to learn more about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you're talking about it with other people too, because it's important that we are open about these things so that the people who are suffering feel safe to express their concerns and their fears, right? Because I'd never felt safe to do so. I always felt constantly judged or thought that people would think less of me. And now I just realized that I don't care what people think. It doesn't matter.
So I'm so interested in one of the things one of the ways you describe yourself as an accidental advocate. And I know a lot of that has to do with the disability community, but I also hear this general openness and ability to talk about difficult concepts, difficult identities, difficult experiences in life that sound really different from the person you described when you were in your marriage and having a difficulty expressing your feelings. So what has that been like to uncover those feelings, uncover a voice behind those feelings, be able to advocate for yourself and others, and make such a radical change from somebody who had a difficulty even vocalizing their own feelings within a relationship to now this really powerful work that you do both socially and in the disability community?
In one word, scary. It's scary to make that transformation. It's scary to be vulnerable. It's hard. It's, that fear of judgment, fear of what are they going to think of me? And and just fear of like, being your true self, right? So many of us use a mask. So many of us are like, this is who I want the world to perceive me as, but no one will really know who I truly am. Right. And I think we often think of like just sociopaths having that kind of thought process, but it's not. It's so many more people, right? So many people don't even know who they are.
Right.
And that was me. That was me 10 years ago, right? That was me 15 years ago when I couldn't speak my emotions or anything. But, having the therapist, honestly, was the biggest help for me, was being able to love myself again, right? Having the disability and everything and all of these other labels and still being able to love myself and be proud of myself. That's really hard to do. And it takes a lot of daily effort.
Yes.
It is not something that I go see my psychologist for 2 weeks and then, oh, look at me. I'm confident and I'm healthy and I'm strong and I'm going to maintain that. Right? No, it's everyday practice. I have a mental health routine every single day. And it's called a practice for a reason. I have to practice it. Right. And I'm just like everybody else. I have lots of stresses. I crumble under pressure. I mean, living with a disability is really hard. And suicide has come up many, 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 many times. Right. I almost took action in 2019 with it because it was so hard to live my life. I didn't take action. I called my psychologist and I went to go see her instead. But I talk about it because people see me and they think I have this perfect life and everything's always rainbows and sunshine and there's glitter falling all over my life, but that's not true, right? That's why I have to openly talk about these things, because I want people to know that if I can do it, you can do it too. I'm just a regular person. I don't have superpowers. I don't have any kind of, special gifts or anything. I'm just a regular human being who worked really, 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 really hard on my self-identity, my self-love, my mental health, and my physical health. But when I do tell people that, they're like, well, it's so hard. I'm like, yeah.
It is hard.
Everything's hard.
So tell me about this idea of agency and this radical ownership of your life that you talk about. Give us some knowledge there.
Sure. So it was, quite a few years ago now. Maybe around 2018-ish. I'm not sure. Anyways, I had the revelation that I will never be able to not work out. Right? I have so much spasticity in my legs and in my core that if I don't work out, if I don't move my body, I'm going to end up with contractures. And a contracture is where your joints stiffen in a certain position. And once you have a contracture, good luck ever releasing it. Right? And being in a seated position for 90% of my day, it's a real reality that could happen. And having spasticity on top of that, where your muscles are constantly like contracting and relaxing, I mean, they're just constantly reinforcing that pattern, right? So it was then that I had that realization that I will have to work out until the day I die. And that was really hard for me to really wrap my head around because, like I said, I'm a normal human being. I don't want to work out every day. I don't want to. But I realized that I have no choice. My goal is to be 109 years old. That's where I want to reach. That. Right? And I'm only 40 right now. So I'm only a third of the way there. Well, a little bit more than a third of the way there. So and I'm already paralyzed, I have asthma, I have eczema, I have all these things that are going to work against me getting there. But it's up to me to change that. And I realized that from a few different sources. My doctors, right? It's really easy to put the blame on somebody else. My doctor didn't do this. My physio didn't do this. My person didn't do this, right? But then it's just like, and I was saying those things too. I was majorly in the victim role, big time. And I think I was valid to be in that victim role based on my paralysis. But the thing is my therapist had to tell me this straight to my face. She said, Bean, Why are you putting your recovery in everybody else's hands? The only person who can heal you is you. And I processed that for, honestly, it took me like a year and a half to really understand that.
You're like, that's pretty rude. Could you not?
And I paid her to tell me this too. Okay. Right. But when I really understood it and processed it, I was like, yeah, she was right. This isn't up to anybody else. This is up to me. My doctors and stuff are there to support me, but it is not up to them. They truly don't really care that much. They have hundreds of other people that they're trying to help as well. And it's their job. Right. And so when I really understood that my recovery is up to me, my mental health is up to me, my physical health is up to me, that's when I was like, okay, so yeah, that's radical ownership, taking your life into your own hands and realizing that your actions or inactions are your fault. Where you are in your life today is your fault. And you know, did I ask for this paralysis? Obviously not. Did I want it? No. Do I still? No. But it happened, right? And whether this happens to you or it happens for you, or, you know, people get cancer, you fall off a horse, you get hit by a car, you get raped. All of these adversities happen to people all the time, right? And it's not your fault that this happened to you. But what you do to move forward from that is 100% your fault, your responsibility. You can either choose to play victim or you can choose to play hero in your own life, right? And we see that time and time again. We have two people with the same adversity. One person chooses the positive route, one person chooses the negative route, and you see how their lives end up.
It makes me think of what Laura McCowan says about this alcohol thing. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Because it's, you know, what you do moving forward is up to you, right? And like, it's a hard thing for people to understand and for people to hear. And I've had people tell me, like, that's a really mean thing for you to say to me. Sure. You can think of it as mean, but is it, or is it honest? Right? And how you perceive what I'm saying is you. That's a you problem, not a me problem. Right? And like a few years ago, so every year I don't do New Year's resolutions, I do statements, right? So a few years ago, my New Year's statement was respond, don't react, right? So if anything happened to me, if somebody said something to me, it's my responsibility to respond, not react. Right? I can't.
And I think that goes for everything too. Any situation that we encounter, not just people.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because you can't control it. You can't control what's going to happen. You can't control what someone's going to say to you, how they're going to say it to you. You can't control that. The only thing you can control is how you respond or react to it. When you react, that's usually a snap reaction. Right. It's usually volatile, and usually of the lower emotions. But if you take a minute, take a breath and respond, right? It has a different air about it. When you say, okay, you know, that's how you feel. You're entitled to how you feel, and I can't change that, but I'm not going to let it affect me. And I'm still going to stand by my statement of what I said to you. How you respond.
That's so good. I mean, I feel like I really like this idea of agency, especially within the context of alcohol. And I don't know, I'll have to see what you think about this. I also do not come from the 12 steps or AA. It was not really ever part of my own recovery or how I got sober, because for me, it was a non-starter. The idea of being an alcoholic kept me drinking longer than I should have, because I just didn't know that I could just be a person who doesn't drink and not call myself anything. But one of the things that was challenging for me in this current conceptualization of the way that we think about recovery, not drinking, alcohol use disorder, was the idea of being powerless over alcohol. And I know that can be interpreted many different ways, and that can be a useful term for people, and that can be a useful idea. But for me, it always felt like I was losing my sense of agency. It always felt like it was something that was taking away my ownership of this. And again, I caveat this, I asterisk this with everybody's experience is unique. But the women I work with now, I work in coaching with women who are trying to quit drinking. It's this idea of like, you have so much agency here. You have so much ability to change here, but you also have the ownership of that. I can't make you do the work. I can give you the information, but I can't make you integrate it. I can tell you the theory, but if you don't use the theory, that's as far as we can go. And I think that, like you said, it's kind of a hard pill to swallow. It's hard to say like, oh, I am the one who's responsible for this. But I also think it's really powerful. I think it can be really empowering when so many of us feel like we don't have agency, or we don't feel like we have power to be able to say, oh, actually, it's in my hands. This is something that I can change.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, right? It is really hard. It's definitely very, very hard. And this is a conversation I have with a lot of people who don't want to take responsibility, right? And, the response back is usually, well, it's too hard. I can't do it. And my response is always like, all right, think of it like this. All right. Being fat and sick is hard. Being fit and healthy is hard. Being broke and poor is hard. Being filthy rich is hard. What are you going to choose? Which hard do you want to choose? Because it's up to you.
Nothing
is easy.
Yeah. I also talk to people who say like, well, it would just be easier just to drink. And I'm like, it can't be that easy if you're here. If you're thinking about it, it's not the easier option. They're both hard, but
no.
Which one do you choose? Which heart do you choose?
Exactly. Like, have you seen liver cirrhosis?
Yeah, the images. Yeah.
I've seen it. Right? Like, you think that's easy? Because that's what it leads to.
Yeah.
Right? And oftentimes I'll talk to people about YouTube a video of what alcohol does at a cellular level. YouTube it. It's out there. You can see what alcohol does to your cells on a cellular level, because too often we think of our head and our body being two different things. And so many people don't understand the biology of our bodies. Our bodies are actually really smart and very, very complex. But people just think like, oh, it's just my body. Food comes in, something happens, poop comes out, right? Like, people don't know how their bodies work, and they don't really realize that they're actually just millions of trillions of cells. And when you look at the video of how the toxin of alcohol affects your cells, and your cells are different for each part of your body, your organs and everything, right? But when you look at it at a cellular level and you see the damage you're doing to each cell, to me, that's what really woke me up, right? I'm a very visual person. I really enjoyed science and biology. So I've being an X-ray tech, I know how your body works, right? But so many people don't. So this is the conversation I have with them, is like, look at it, right? And if doctors knew this, why are doctors saying that it's okay to drink? It's okay to have a couple of glasses of wine. It's okay to have a scotch. It's okay to have this. It's okay to have that. Is it?
Yeah. It's really interesting. I just had a video go like pretty viral on TikTok, which totally different conversation. 0 out of 10, do not recommend, because the internet is a lot.
Terrible.
But the video is about alcohol being classified as a class 1 carcinogen, which means it is known to cause cancer. And man, people really don't like hearing that. People really don't want to hear the tangible impact of alcohol on our physical bodies. And it's really interesting to see how just people will justify it. So the comment section, of course, comment section anywhere is a hot mess, but this is a dumpster fire of a comment section. It's got about 1,200 comments at this point. But so many of the comments are like, yeah, but it's good for your heart. Or I saw this one study that says, XYZ is fine. And there's so many arguments in the comments, or like a lot of people saying like, I'm here for a good time, not for a long time, which is also very nihilistic. But it's really interesting to watch people in real time justifying their continued use. And that's fine. Like if you are fully informed, you understand completely what you are consuming, and then you still choose to move forward. Again, agency, that is your ownership. But the mental gymnastics that we will still play to justify something, even when we have more concrete data about how it's impacting our bodies, is very interesting. I, again, wouldn't recommend going viral on TikTok. It's not as cracked up as they say it is, but it's really, really fascinating to see, more on a tangible level, what is happening here. And this idea that it's a neurotoxin, talking about your nervous system, like alcohol is toxic to our nervous system. And I mean, I could geek out about that stuff forever, but I want to know, as we are wrapping up kind of the end of our conversation. So one of the things that I wrote down from the beginning of your story is how you were gaining the courage and the bravery to speak your truth. And the ripple effect that has is really powerful, and how important it is to see people in our lives who look like us, who have similar experiences, who have physical attributes that look like us, who have identities that are similar to ours. And really that's kind of what we're doing here at Sober Stories, is really speaking different iterations of this kind of path that we're all on of changing our relationship with alcohol. And I think that that's really important. So what stories do you want to be known for? What stories or what truths that you speak are really impactful for you?
Wow, good question. I think the biggest one would be that I'm not a victim. I don't ever want to be considered a victim. I don't want myself to consider myself a victim. That I do want to take ownership for everything that I do, positive or negative. It is always my fault. 100%. Everything that has happened is my fault. I am where I am in my life because of me. Right. And so that works in both positive and negative. I think it's hard. Like the hard part of that is the positive side of things, right? It's easy to play victim. It's easy to say, this happened to me, blah, blah, blah. But what's difficult for a lot of people nowadays is to say, no, I am brave. I am courageous. I am strong. I am all these things. Even as I'm saying it now, and even though I fully believe it, a part of me is should you be saying that?
Yes, you should.
Do you sound conceited? Mm-hmm. Right? Because I think that's how we're programmed. Yeah. We're programmed to constantly talk negatively about ourselves, about each other. Right? But, would you ever say that about your friend?
Right.
No. Right? The words we use in our head play a huge part in how we present ourselves and how we talk to others. So having that ownership and being proud of who you are, I think is something that I will always continue to work on, but I am proud of that I am able to say, I'm not that person you think I am. I'm smart. I'm strong. I'm courageous. I'm brave. I'm all these things, and I'm unapologetic about it.
Yes.
Which is hard.
Unapologetic. I love that. I also try to live unapologetically, and sometimes it gets me crazy comments on TikTok, but here we are. The last question I always ask in every interview is, if your story were to be written into a book, what would it be titled, and what kind of story would it be?
Good question again. I think it would be called Welcome to the Jungle. And there's a couple plays on that. So my full name, Ben Veet, means woman of the jungle.
Okay.
So having that name growing up, I think I've kind of grew into that name, and I've always been a little bit wild, always been very different. And I embrace that now. And another part of Welcome to the Jungle is my life is freaking crazy. I've only told you 2% of what has actually happened in my life.
You just need to start a full podcast of the bean life.
Oh my God, it would be too long. But sometimes I think now I realize that I have more adversity than the average human being. I understand that. But sometimes I'm like, what does it feel like to just live a normal life? Like, what does it feel like? I wonder what it feels like for these people. Right? Because I'm like, oh, like, and I try not to invite it. I try not to invite more adversity to my life. But when it comes, like, I'm definitely way better equipped now to deal with any adversity that does come into my life. But sometimes I'm just like, can I just like have a little break?
I'm just going to take a little nap, and then the adventure, the jungle can like begin again. But I just want to nap for a minute.
Yeah, like just like pause. It's too much sometimes. But I also recognize that this is my life. This is the life I chose when I became a human being in this form. So
here we are.
Got to deal with it.
For better or for worse, here we are. Well, it has been so wonderful to talk to you. And I feel like there's so many good nuggets that we didn't even get to touch on because there's just a lot of richness in the story that you shared with us. So thank you so much for your story. I know our community will want to connect with you. How can they find you? What do you have going on in your world? Where can we connect with you?
Sure. So first of all, thank you very much for having me. When I got your email to be a guest, I was very, very happy because this is something important to share. And I can't wait to share the episode when it does release, because I think it's going to give other South Asian people permission to call themselves alcoholics and to then share their stories, which will have a ripple effect in our community. I hope. To contact me, you can contact me via Instagram, which is at Branzoid, BRANZOID. My business website is www.reyu.ca, REYU.ca. So you can contact me through there. My email address is bean@reyu.ca. So you can email me if you'd like. Yeah, we have a lot of things going on. Lots of new projects happening, lots of big things happening. I signed with a public speaking agent, so I'll be doing a lot more public speaking. Yeah, traveling around to the States. So maybe I'll get to meet you in real life one day.
Cool. Yeah, if you make it down to Texas, let me know.
Oh, that's where she's located. So there's a good chance I'll be in Texas. Yeah, lots of things happening. I try not to turn down any opportunity because we only live once. Drake said it, right? So we have to embrace it.
If Drake said it, we got to listen.
We have to listen, yes. And I mean, if we let all the little things stop us, you're just missing out on so much that could be, right? So forget about the little things, forget about what they think of you, take responsibility for who you are and go live your life, man.
Heck yeah. I think that is exactly the right way to do it. All right, Bean. Well, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a beautiful day.
Thanks, Beth. You too.